last record is called Thunder in My Arms. It was inspired in part by my journey as a foster adoptive parent. It's written from a whole wide variety of viewpoints, and different characters tell their stories throughout the whole album. It's meant to be supportive and comforting music for anyone whose lives have been affected by foster care or adoption.
On that afternoon, the sun was in the sky. It made little sparkling diamonds.
The chorus actually came to me first, and that was a very personal, that was a real life experience, something that was happening to us in our family every day, where we were dealing with a dear little human who was having these rages. He'd be screaming, don't look at me, look away, don't look at me. And that was, it was just this, kind of became this theme of anger and shame, and trying to figure out how to heal from that. And that's not an easy task at any age. A lot of the songs in this album, including on my own, I kind of think of them like patchwork quilts with influences and little story snippets from all these different areas of my life. And On My Own is very much like that. There's definitely a little piece of me in there, like, my own experience as a teenager, feeling kind of lost and alone and adrift, kind of combined with that feeling of big love that you get sometimes inexplicably, where as a teenager you might feel desolate one minute and then completely full of love the next minute, and that's just part of the journey. And when you're looking to kind of establish your individuality and to figure out how you're the same or how you're different from the people that you love and have grown up around. But as an adoptee and an adoptive parent, I think it's interesting to think about those feelings from even further back, from thinking about those thoughts from, say, if you don't know quite where you come from yet.
You can run away.
It actually originated as a complaint list.
You can cry.
I just needed to vent, and I was writing in my journal, and I had a list of things that I was just so frustrated with as a parent. Things like, getting woken up in the middle of the night over and over and over again, and being exhausted. As I kept writing, I started thinking about, I had this mantra in my head, I will, I still love you, I will always love you, I love you. And it felt like for every complaint or every difficulty that I was experiencing as a parent, I also had this need and this sense to reassure, my son and of course, myself, that it doesn't matter. I still love you. I love you anyway. I love you. And it ended up being quite a cathartic experience. I mean, I cried as I wrote the song, and for a long time I couldn't actually sing it for anybody because it was too personal and too real. And it has evolved and is now it's out in the world. It's on this album, and it's such a pleasure to know that it's very reassuring for all the young ones out there that are listening to it. Hercules is met with this being that changes shape, and Hercules has to wrestle with and hang on to this being as it transforms and goes through all these crazy, scary, big changes. And we were talking about that as a metaphor for, for parenting, and how sometimes you have to, when you love someone who's dealing with trauma or addiction, it can be a lot like that. You hang on to someone through these scary and fantastical changes and development, and you just hang on for dear life.
I can calm my body when I sit beside you.
Feel Better I wrote first. I brought it into my son's therapist asking, like, okay, does this sound like a typical reaction? I wrote this song about self-soothing and trying to feel better when you're upset. And I was really trying hard to use the chorus as sort of a meditation prompt, almost, like a guided meditation song about breathing, trying to calm your heart rate down, trying to work through difficulty. And my son's therapist was like, well, this is nice, but it sounds like what you wish would happen, or maybe what you do when you're working through something difficult. But what's more typical of a child who's experienced trauma is that they need to co-regulate before they can self-regulate. Those early infant caregiver relationships really define us as humans, and it's a really significant, important developmental step to have this this relationship, this give and take, where the baby expresses a need one way or another, and then the caregiver attends to it, and that teaches us as humans. That teaches us so many things.
They sent me
Usually twice a year, I kind of go through all the photos and things that we've collected over the last bunch of months, and I pick out my favorites and I make them into a little book. And at one point, I just was realizing, what it was like to be on the receiving end of that, where you get these beautiful photographs, but that's all you get. And I get the real kid. I was going down to Woods Hole, Massachusetts for a gig with my band Low Lily, and for whatever reason, we were meeting at the venue, so I was riding in the car on my own, thinking about a conversation I'd had the night before with a friend who was talking about parenting with their own sort of personal baggage from growing up, and how sometimes, we're all dealing with our own histories, our own past, and sometimes that past is so large and so significant that as a parent in the current day, you don't always know what to do. You don't always react appropriately, and in fact, sometimes you really don't. But for some of us, just overcoming that and overcoming our past is so monumental that it's all that we can do to just stick around. And so there, I had this friend that was expressing this to me and saying that, like, even though they're not a perfect parent, they at least have stayed, and every day they're still there. They show up for their kids as adults, even though they didn't have that in their childhood. We're all in it. We're all trying to be the best people that we can be, and trying to be the best parents that we can be, and with the resources that we have, I called up my friend Jody, who is a musician, fiddle player, and photographer, cool person, also happens to be adopted, and asked her if she wanted to write a song together. She ended up kind of having some long conversations with her mom, and they were just talking about family memories, and what it was like when she was adopted. And so then Jody, and I had a bunch of conversations about those family memories and kind of constructing them within song form, and talking about maybe, we decided to try a song that was a little bit more of a conversation between a parent and a child, and that actually ended up dictating the song form, and all these little details that Jody shared with me from her family and her mom conversations with her mom, they kind of all wove their way into the song. This is another song that was written inspired by my son's therapist, and all the questions that I was asking, really responding to the question of what do you say to families on a regular basis. What he actually said was, I just wish when babies are crying, wherever, in the laundromat or the store, I just wish their parents would just pick them up. Which is funny because my mother-in-law says that all the time too. When your baby's crying, you just pick them up and then they feel better. And so, so that turned into a song, basically. Yeah, this is actually my son's favorite. It's just, he loves to know, in many, 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 many different ways that we are going to be there for him. I think that's what we all want. We all want to know that from the people we love.
When my baby cries, I want to hold him. When my baby cries, when my baby cries, I want to hold him. When my baby cries, when my baby